Now that we have thrown all of the parts and they've set up for a little while, it is time to trim the base of the watering can. Trimming is almost always one of my favorite steps because I just love watching the little spirals of clay fly off of the pot. This only happens when the consistency of your clay is just perfect. If it's too wet, the pieces will stick to your tool. If it's too dry, the spirals will be really short and break long before they hit your wheel head. Getting the perfect clay consistency for trimming can be quite frustrating sometimes, especially if you don't have a studio that you can go to whenever you'd like and are instead stuck working on a class schedule or during their open studio hours. We're looking for that perfect leather hard stage where the clay is still slightly squishy, but not so much that if you squeeze it, the clay moves. Like if I pressed on the lip really hard right now, this pot would crack. But if I squeeze the base just a little bit, it dents very slightly. But I can very easily cut it with my nail, which is why the trimming tools work so wonderfully. I also see this stage called cheese hard every once in a while, and I could see why, because it's very, very similar to a sharp cheddar cheese that is very easy to cut with a knife, but hard to break otherwise. The whole time I'm trimming, I am also supporting the side of my pot somehow because this pot is very tall. The taller something is, the more likely it is that pressure from the side is going to knock your pot off center. And if your pot isn't centered, trimming is not going to go well for you. When you're trimming, it's just as important that you are as stable as you are when you're throwing. I want to make sure my arms are anchored back close to my body and that I am using my bracing so that I don't wobble while I'm trimming. Because if you wobble while you're trimming, your pot will be wobbly as well. And I think we forget as potters sometimes to talk about how important it is that you're still braced while you're trimming. Not being braced properly also makes it much more likely that you're going to get caught on your pot and have it get kind of ripped by your trimming tools. I've always found that trimming the sides of a pot is a lot more fun than trimming the very base. I typically find that the base is just not as satisfying, but it is really nice to have that trimmed all the way. I have now sped the video up to about 2 times speed just so I could fit more of this video into one part instead of splitting it up. I love this part of the process. I find it so satisfying to get to reveal the form that I envisioned at the beginning. Because when you throw, there's often a little bit of clay left behind that you'd need to remove, but it's needed there because clay is so soft that if it's not there, the pot will collapse. So trimming allows you to get to that point. Before I take my pot off of the wheel, I also love to smooth over the bottom with a sponge. And then after this pot's going to sit up for a little while before I attach the spout handle and little watering can lid cover.